he's finally spoken on an issue which is of the utmost concern to this country. When the honorable members of the ruling benches were clapping and cheering on the statement, I thought that a good news was in the offing. The financial data for the recent months is to be announced today. I understand it's been deferred to be announced only in the evening. But the Prime Minister, who has more authentic information than any of us on the subject, has given an indication that the growth in the first quarter is likely to be more flat. So this country has survived many economic crises in the past. We survived the East Asian economic crisis in the late 90s, the slowdown of the earlier part of the last decade. To some extent, we tried to survive even the global financial crisis or the Lehman crisis of the last decade. But there is one fundamental difference. Today, the situation appears to be far gloomy, and the ability of the government and its political leadership to handle this crisis itself has lost confidence not only in the country, but is also losing the confidence of the investing community. And this has happened over the last few years. Let me start with the last point that the Prime Minister made. He emphasized the need for a larger consensus on economic issues. Of course, it's necessary. But then consensus on economic issue emerges out of a political environment. If that political environment for consensus is not built up by the government, on the contrary, it is regularly fractured by the government of the day, then to expect consensus only on economic issues itself will be a daunting and a challenging task. No government can say, I want consultation, I want to be very democratic, but I am a Democrat only when in distress. That seems to be the attitude of this government. And therefore, I think it's a lesson for all of us, particularly this government, that in a course of conduct with state governments, with political parties, conduct in this House while conducting the affairs, conduct of its investigative agencies, once it reaches a certain level of fairness and has political acceptability, then despite differences on crucial matters of national interest, there could be consensus, and we'd welcome a consensus of this kind. But if a government regularly breaks and fractures that consensus, then it may be very challenging for it to expect a consensus when in isolation. So this government lost and it's for the Honorable Prime Minister, and that's my question. You blamed global factors for it. You blamed various other factors which have come in. But has the Prime Minister realized that the whole world was warning us? It was global financial media which was warning us. It was global investors who were warning us that there is a spate of policy paralysis going on in India. And this has been a criticism for the last 4 to 5 years.
Could you, the actual position. Please.
The whole world warned us. And it was a fair comment that the world was making. It is not a comment that we didn't invent this phrase. Never has this phrase been used for economic policy direction in India as much it has been used in the last few years. And this has been used by responsible international observers. Why did we lose the trust of international investors? Why did we lose the trust of domestic investors? Instead of somebody investing in India, and that had an impact even on current account deficit, that you had a reverse flow of investment from India going on outside. People started saying that India may no longer be the best place to do business in. From 1991 onwards till today, under governments of different political complexions, we as a nation succeeded in showcasing India as an economic destination. In the last few years, that image was lost. Kindly see the impact, Honorable Prime Minister, that corruption has had. The Finance Minister recently made a statement blaming or indicating the blame on certain other institutions. Let's take the case of the spectrum allocation and see the spiral effect. It was a case of governmental corruption. The CAG came out with a report. The CAG gave some numbers on which we may have different views. The court acted because it was apparently a case of corruption. As a result, sir, may I just request you, this is a very important issue.
I know, but there are many members which would
No, I think
need clarifications. So let clarifications be. I leave it to your judgment. I leave it to the judgment of the Honorable LOP.
I'll try and be as brief as possible. And finally, you had a situation, besides prosecutions, you had licenses being terminated, investments being confiscated. Now, this was a spiral effect of governmental corruption. Now, we became a country where investments could be confiscated, licenses could be cancelled. Coal. The government speaks of essential imports. Oil is an essential import. Edible oils are essential imports. But we have coal reserves. What has happened in the last 6-7 years because of coal? Essentially because of governmental corruption, you have today a situation where we have to import almost $20 billion of coal. The global prices are going up. The result of which is current account deficit. Iron ore, both corruption by section of the industry, as also by our system, including agencies of the government, you have a situation that our imports have come to a standstill. Now, it may not be, exports have come to a standstill. Now, all these factors are contributing to the current account deficit. Now, we can say that the courts are responsible, the CAG is responsible, but the root cause in what we did, and this was a spiral effect of what corruption took place within our system, the spiral effect of which was that people started losing confidence as far as we were concerned. Policy decision, and here leadership was required, not only for policy directives, but you can indicate that some difficult decisions took place during 2009, 2011. But when some fiscal suggestions were made, including suggestions for retrospective taxation, the Prime Minister should have, as an eminent economist and a leader of the government, applied himself as to what the long-term impact of this is going to be. Now, each of these decisions, you lost the trust of global investors, you lost the trust of domestic investors, and therefore merely to say that there are global factors, there is a crisis in Syria, that others are also doing very badly. Honorable Prime Minister, a failed candidate in a class always has this explanation that the whole class has failed this time. That is no explanation. We were amongst the fastest growing economies in the world. We were being showcased before the world, and therefore our benchmarks, today agencies are indicating that our growth rates may fall even below 4% this year. Now, if this is to happen, you'll have to realize that what is the priority of this government? And we'd like a specific answer. You speak in terms of correcting the fiscal deficit. Look at the figures. There was a time when the going was good, and for years together we had a 8 to 9% growth rate. We came down to 2.53% fiscal deficit. And then electoral expenditure was undertaken. As a result of which, from 2.5, you've gone up to 6%. Your revenue deficits went up. And merely to say that the periods 2009, 2011 were responsible, because those in charge at that time are not here to defend themselves. This is an exercise which started in 2007, 2008, keeping the last election in mind. Therefore, you'll now have to decide whether you want to go back to prudence or you want to give priority to populism, which I'm afraid your government is still doing. Because if you continue to follow the course, then the legacy that you left behind will not be the legacy that you left behind as a finance minister. That legacy was different. The legacy then you will leave behind as Prime Minister is going to be, after me the deluge. The country cannot afford it, and therefore we'd like you to respond to these clarifications as though these domestic factors have also contributed to the mess in which the country has been landed up.
Thank you very much.